Tell me a little about what you do.
Okay. About 2.5 years ago, I was just an event planner, and then when the gay marriage ruling went down, I decided to throw myself back into wedding planning, which I had done during the 80s and the 90s.
Where were you an event planner at, though?
Actually here, you mean where was I here in Des Moines?
Well, yeah.
I have my own event company called Panache.
Okay.
I started it 10 years ago when I lived in Fort Dodge and taught school at Iowa Central Community College. Fort Dodge didn't really have a big event community at that time.
Yeah.
More importantly, they didn't even have a caterer in town.
Oh my God.
So I just became the caterer and event dude. And then met Tom Bozen from Bozen the Florist in 1999. And he offered me an opportunity to come down and do his wedding planning work for him.
Really? That's a big deal.
Yeah, I was very humbled by the opportunity. I also had a break in my contract where I was able to change course. And so I moved down to Des Moines and worked for Tom at Bozen's for almost 2 years. And then just saw the opportunity to break out on my own. I'd always really enjoyed doing my own sort of thing with my own take on it, and at that point in time felt confident enough and self-assured enough to throw out a little shingle on Grand Avenue and launch my Panache business. And literally, like, from that point forward, just stayed in the mix, just tried to stay on top of trends, stay involved in the industry, whether it was freelance work or corporate work or wedding work. And then I went to work for the Salvation Army. I started as a volunteer and was presented with an opportunity to work doing intervention and education programming.
Really?
For chemical dependency related issues around HIV.
Okay.
The Salvation Army caters to a demographic that's usually, how do I say kindly, a little more street type of vibe.
Sure.
People are coming in off the streets, struggling with homelessness, mental illness, chemical dependency, and looked at it as a challenge, especially as an openly gay man who had dealt with HIV and AIDS during the 80s and survived that. Unfortunately, that journey, I lost all my friends, but I also gained a lot of strength and a lot of wisdom on human kindness, and that you truly have to give back, and what goes around comes around. And that was an opportunity for me to just get my hands dirty, literally and physically, and help the Salvation Army in the East Village. It's an ARC, an Adult Rehabilitation Center, and they were about to close because of their funding. They didn't have any money, their stores weren't successful, the stores were all losing money. So within 9 months, they brought all 5 stores back to profit level.
Wow.
And then also linked and joined forces with some big box retailers to donate their discontinued and clearance product to the Salvation Army.
Really?
And so the Salvation Army in 1 year totally turned itself around and now is a profitable, very vital part of our community. I shop there. I buy stuff for weddings there. I mean, I don't know how to put it. I don't suggest to my brides to go and find their wedding dresses there, but I do know that the Salvation Army has some pretty good wedding dresses too. So anyway, that was my event background. And then when this wedding ruling went down, I threw myself out there one last time, and because of my experience, because of the 20 pages on Google now that you get when you Google Beau Fodor, I have a diverse enough background with enough accessibility to be able to cater to both a local and an out-of-state clientele for my wedding business, bringing in destination couples and then also working locally within the state and coordinating and facilitating the most possible green, fabulous, cutting-edge wedding that anyone can imagine.
So backing up a little bit, why do you enjoy doing the wedding planning so much?
Well, this is new to me, enjoying doing the wedding planning.
The word enjoying?
Yeah, well, no, the actual act of enjoying the wedding planning part. During the 90s, we lived in a very crazy material wedding world where it was all about budgets.
Okay.
The more money you spend, the more drama you buy.
Really?
Literally, both from the behind-the-scenes standpoint as a planner, more importantly, as a bride and a groom.
Okay.
And when you spend more money to have it appear to be more fabulous, you're really not fooling anybody, because everybody basically knows where you came from, what you can and can't afford.
Gotcha.
And most importantly, just the tension and the stress and the drama that is built in with having an over-the-top budgeted wedding that you really can't afford. You're going to enter your life with that man or woman in debt, with a lot of stress.
Not worth it.
Most importantly, you're going to enter into it with some resentment, because of your wedding that you thought was going to be your epiphany moment, and you're going to truly get to live happily ever after because you spent $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, $100,000 doesn't buy happily ever after.
Oh gosh, no.
Yeah, $1 million doesn't buy happily ever after. Makes for a fabulous wedding though, and call me if you have $1 million budget. More importantly, the weddings of the 90s were all about ostentatious grandiosity, just bad taste. And so I got really burnt out on it and promised I would never do it again. This time around, I think what the core issue of what it boils down for me, not so much as a wedding planner, but as a gay man who is a wedding planner, is, on April 3rd, 2009, I was told by the Iowa Supreme Court that I was equal, that I was the same, and that I could marry that person that I loved.
Sure.
And I never really thought about it. I never was in love enough to marry somebody. But just the fact that I could changed everything. And I know what that's like to grow up feeling like you're not 100%.
Sure, you're lesser.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my final, 5%, because I was at 95% already. But yeah, that was my final icing on my cake, to believe in myself, to believe in my core being as something that was valuable and would be valued if I offered that out. And now with 47 weddings later, I'm so humbled every day, so joy-filled every day. There's still the craziness of the stress and the insanity that goes with wedding planning, but to work with couples, more importantly, to work with couples' families that never in their wildest dreams even thought this would be a possibility,
Sure.
to watch that be realized, come to fruition, and then the joy that I get to experience. It's not the same as it is with a typical traditional heterosexual wedding, because these are people that never thought they were going to be able to have this.
It's a bigger deal.
It is a bigger deal. I get asked this question all the time: what's the difference between gay and straight wedding?
It's a good question, frankly.
Well, and there's only really one answer, and it's not that big of an answer. It's really one word, and it's homophobia.
So why would you? I'm not saying that this is what you focus all your energy on, but why do you call yourself a gay wedding planner if you say that there's no difference? Is that just for people?
Well, it's so that my couples who are struggling with their own internalized homophobia,
Mm-hmm.
or my couples that have been berated or looked down upon,
Okay.
or discounted because they were a gay couple, because we still have a lot of people in our industry that believe marriage is between a man and a woman.
Sure.
And even though they're professional and they say that doesn't carry over into their business life, it does.
It's hard to
And a
do.
couple can pick up on that instantly.
Gotcha.
I don't ever want to separate myself as a gay wedding planner, that I'm exclusively
Okay.
a gay wedding planner. I'm a gay guy who's a wedding planner.
There
Okay?
you go.
Not going to be able to get around that. That's just the way it is. That's the way I'm going to roll from this point forward. I did exclusively work the first 2 years on gay weddings. I felt
Okay.
like I was not obligated to do that, but that I needed to focus on that. The psychology behind a gay wedding is very different than the psychology behind a straight wedding. And even though I'm not a psychologist or a psychology major, I did minor in psychology in college, and that for me is my biggest challenge, stumbling block, but also my greatest sense of accomplishment. When those couples get back on their plane or get on that train or get in their cars, for them to say, "Beau, thank you, we feel complete," it still chokes me up. I mean, there's times when I'm hugging my couples goodbye and I'm crying and feeling like I don't want them to leave, because they've
Right.
sort of become like my family as well, and that doesn't really always happen in other weddings.
You've mentioned this a couple times, and it took me the second time for you to mention this for me to actually register. As Iowa as a destination wedding, you mentioned destination wedding, and obviously now I'm like, well, okay, it's because of the ruling, obviously.
Right.
So there's a stereotype that Iowa's not the destination wedding. So what are your clients coming out after having their wedding here?
Well, my clients are coming out after their wedding with the realization is that Iowa is truly a field of opportunity. I mean, there's just so many diverse venues. There are so many diverse modalities as far as ways to have your wedding, ways to celebrate your nuptials. Not to say that there's the rest of the country isn't as wonderful to have your wedding at.
Sure,
But as far as a gay couple, they have 4 states to choose from. Our rather surreal landscape, once they get here and they experience it, the best example I can use is I had a couple very early on last year, wanted a totally organic wedding in a soybean field.
Oh, how fun.
Well, the wedding photography could not be more magical. Those fields, it was a breezy day, and
Oh,
the fields
beautiful.
flew back and forth to the accompaniment of the celloist and the violinist.
Really?
And as I watched the footage, the bean field becomes like a Chanel comforter.
Mm.
I mean, it's just like these variations of green, and they raise and they drop, and just the footage. I mean, it truly defined what an organic green wedding should be like. As well as going to the other end of the spectrum, I just did a wedding in the Davenport area at the Hotel Blackhawk. They took a 1920 hotel that was basically condemned. There had been welfare families living in it, and a meth lab blew up in it, so it had been closed and then condemned. But they dropped $44 million on it, and now Iowa has what I call a true 5-star property that can rival a Ritz-Carlton, can rival any 5-star hotel that I've been to. But the feeling, the vibe for me is very Ritz-Carlton-like. A lot of marble, a lot of overstuffed down sofas, canopy beds,
Oh, wow.
just everything about it very hip, very historic, but still timeless and classy. Almost like the other end of the spectrum as far as what you've got going on at this property, where you have a very hip, modern, minimalistic, chic field.
Mm-hmm.
That hotel takes it to the other end of the spectrum with opulence and over-the-top fabrics, and even down to their 1,000 thread count sheets on your beds.